Good morning everyone, and welcome back to Craft Eccentricity. Now if you watched yesterday's video, that was the DIY art bin design team haul, and I said I was going to go away and I was going to do the gingerbread and mitten, which I really liked, and also the angel, but I've changed my mind. I'm not going to do the angel today. I've decided I'm going to do the two little birdies, which are kind of perched on a door knocker, and it's a vintage one. So this was the gingerbread with mittens, which, as you can see, very few pieces, super simple. I've made that one, and this is the one that we're going to do together. So there you have two little birdies. This is the door knocker, which on the website is kind of brass. I believe the bow is blue and the birds are red and yellow. So we've got some greenery, and obviously that's green, so it should be easy, she says. Nope, probably not. But anyway, the one that I made. So using my lovely notebook frames that I got in my personal haul last week, I used a sheet of this is Snap Click Supply, and I think it's Jennifer Burset. That's who I think this one is. And this wood plank also comes with all the knitted Fair Isle patterns. Now, because I'm not so sure about the pack this is from, I will put it down below. And then I did the cuffs in a different colour, popped a bow on there. Let's see how close we can get. You've got that gorgeous little gingerbread. I used a little bit of distress ink around the edges, and because I used one of the elements that comes with this pack, I laid a doily on top of the wood grain and printed it, and then I was able to use those two little doilies that I got in a personal haul a couple of weeks ago. So I was able to put those on there. And then of course you've got that fabulous knitted sentiment, baby it's cold outside, and I just think that looks really cute on that. Finished off with my lovely little satin ribbon, which usually come in a bag of 100 from AliExpress. So basically stayed true to the colour of the gingerbread, but changed the colour of the mittens, which are, I think, bright red on the website. So I've made that. It's all popped up on foamy dots, and I just love it. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, love this paper pack. So as I said, I'll try and link that one below. I'm pretty sure it's Jennifer Burset, but I'm not sure on the name of the pack. Right, so we are going to do the birdie on the door knocker. I'm just leaning over the table there. Now what I'm going to do is run away and die cut this, and I'm going to die cut it in Walmart's watercolour paper, which is lovely cheap, lovely and thick, and I'm going to use my Tombow watercolour pens. So I'll be right back. Right, so going back to Monday, you'll remember that we cut out this lace panel and I did the back for it. And what I did on Monday was I did go and complete inking it, because I only part did it. So I've got this wonderful distress, which is in tea dye and antique linen, and then onto a piece of craft cardstock. So I'll give you a close-up of that because you didn't see it all finished. And yeah, we're going to stick our birdie onto there. Right, so you've seen that, and I'm going to move my base out of the way. All right, bring my stuff in. First of all, my lovely scruffy mat. Now, people have asked about my scruffy mat, and this one is from AliExpress. They're called silicone project mats, and they're a couple of dollars, but you can get huge silicone mats from Amazon. And, well, they were quite cheap. When I got mine, I think I got 3 rather large ones for either $6 or $7. So, and before I forget, let me pause. I must do something really quickly. Right, somebody asked yesterday about this glitter, and so I'm going to try and get as close as I can for you. And you can see it's a kind of milky white frostiness. That's the only way I can describe it. I mean, I could tip it out into my hands, but it's not going to show up any better than it is in the bottle. So that's what you're looking for. It's called String of Pearls. And you can see how long I've had it. There you go. 2012. Yeah. It's actually made in China, so I wonder if I can go glitter hunting on AliExpress and track it down. So that's what I wanted to share because somebody asked about that. Right, that's back on my shelf. Right, I've got my scruffy mat down, piece of kitchen paper. I've got my stamp block, and that's one of Elena Crafts. And I just like to scrub my pens off on that. I am using a bunch of pens. These are what I'm using. Now, Tombow don't colour their pens. They don't have names for the colours, you know, like that's not known as mustard and that's not known as banana pie or what have you. They just put numbers on them. So as I use them, I'll just tell you what number I'm using. And there's an awful lot of them. So I'm just resting them off over to there. And I'm using a water brush. Right, so here's the die cuts. So I've cut my greenery and I've cut several of those. Here are the two little birdies. See if we can get close there. There you go. So that's one of the little birdies. And one of the things that I wanted to show you with those little birds is that they come with the kind of breast portions for them. And that is your door knocker and that is your bow. And the bow and the greenery all go up and off there. So I'm just going to put those there for a second. Right, so with the die, if you're using colour cardstock, you get two little breast pieces that cut out, and they go, get it the right way around, they'd go onto there so that you can cut your bird in red, and then it's got a little yellow chest area like that. But I'm not doing that, I'm watercolouring, so I'm taking those away. And I hope that I'm going to be proficient and careful enough to do the beak and the eyes, because I believe that they are black. Right, so the biggest bit first is the door knocker, and it is a brassy colour. Now, I've got it on the side there, and I'm just going to go in, I think, with my palest one first. This is the one that kind of looks like banana pie, but it's number 991. And I'm scrubbing off on my block because you never really know. With some watercolours, it can kind of like get stuck in the grain of the paper and it doesn't blend out very well. So it's just nice to be able to put it down and then fiddle around until you get the colour that you want. Now, as you can see, that is very pale, but that's okay because you can always get your highlights and your lowlights in doing it like that. And I hope that I'm in camera shot. And you can really, really rough. I'm just, you know, scooshing it on. And the pale colour with the water is actually priming the paper. So I think I'm pretty much down there. And you might not be able to see it on camera. I'm going to pick it up. You can see it's a very, very pale kind of almost a straw yellow. I hope you can see that now as compare it to the white birdie. So you can see there is some colour down there. And of course your paper will curl up because it's wet, but we'll just ignore that. Right, next I'm going to go in with a much darker shade, and my ink block is, stamp block rather, is already wet, so I can just pick up different colours from different places. So I'll mix a little bit of that in there. And I'll start with that first. And think about shadow. So, and I will use a lot more water actually in a little while. Now I want to go down there. You've got to think about where your lights and your low lights are. I mean, I'm not doing Picasso or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? No, most certainly I'm not. I wish I was that good, actually. But I'm just coming around here and just adding bits where I want to. And it's just another fun way, you know, rather than just using colour cardstock. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of thinking about where the darkest part of my door knocker is going to be, and I'm first doing it in like a darker shade of yellow because I'm thinking it's going to be quite shadowed, and then into the inside area there. And I'm thinking maybe I'll put a bit there. I mean, if I go quiet, you know, I do apologise. It's just I kind of get stuck in and then I get carried away. So we're not really going to see that much up there, I don't think, because it's going to be covered with the bow. So, right, so that's my second colour that I've got down. And now I want to go a lot darker now. I want to start putting in a little bit of outline. So I'm going to clean my block, which is why I was well organised and got my kitchen paper. There, that's all nice and clean. And I'm going to go down with some brown, which is a bit brave, but we are going to put a little squirt of water with that, because I always worry about, you know, going in too dark first of all. But the great thing about paper, isn't it, if you make a mistake, you can always go in and change it. I'm going to go a little bit darker there now. Like I say, we're not doing Picasso, we're just making a pleasant card for someone. Going some dark. And then the insides of what we're doing. So just think about where your shadows would be. And then I'm going to go dark underneath. And I'm also going to be brave in a second, and I'm going to use some black. But first of all, I'm just putting in where I want my darker shades by actually using the brown to pick that up, so that I've got a visual, if you know what I mean. So I'm now mixing that up, and I'm coming down here, because I do believe that on the website this is actually watercoloured in. I'm pretty sure it is. And I think that's how they used to do a lot of Christmas images in those days. They used to have some fabulous artists. I mean, I'm always saying it, but I really genuinely do mean it. I mean, some of the Christmas images, the American ones, are just absolutely iconic. I don't think there's anybody in the world. I mean, I know you've got European, very traditional, but I don't think there's anyone in the world that quite did Christmas the way that America did it from a visual perspective. Right, so I've got that bit down, and it might look a bit blotchy. It probably is blotchy, but I'm quite happy with that. I kind of like those tones that I've got going on, so I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm going to tickle the edges, and then I'm going to clean that off, and we're going to get brave with some black. And this video might be quite a long one, so I might actually, you know, go away and colour my greenery in, which is just straightforward, just to slow down the time on the video. Because you know me, I'm not all sort of techno, and I don't know how to speed things up. And quite frankly, I don't want to sound like like I'm talking like Minnie Mouse. So I'm thinking on the edge there. See, we're being very brave. Just on the edge there, and then just pull it down. I'm not going to be scared now. I'm just going to go for it. So as you can see, it is quite sort of grungy, vintagey looking. And we'll put a bit in there. And then I'll cast a shadow on the handle and down here because it's underneath. So I'm going to go there and do this bit here. Go along there a bit, I think, and a little bit there. I'm kind of like trying to follow the cut and emboss lines that I can see. I don't know what that looks like. I think that looks alright. I think I probably have a little bit more darkness going on this side. Just pick those little bits up. Yeah, as you can see, that is very watercoloured. That's all I'm going to say. And then you can just go along and use a little bit of grey, because that's what you've got on your brush now, from the darkness mixed with the water. Try and take out some of those very white points. I'm quite happy with that. Right, so I'm going to let that dry, and all I'm going to do with these is colour them in 2 shades of green. So I'm going to put my pale shade down first and then go over it with the darker, and it is 158 and 177, and I'll be right back. Right, so I've done my bit of green and that's drying, and the next thing we need to do is the little yellow tummies on the birds. So I'm just scooshing up there. Now, I'm pretty sure the feet are black, but that's okay. I can just, you know, apply marker down into that area. Got a little bit of fluff on my brush there. And you do not have to be perfect. So I've got, I hope that you can see that, because this is as low as my camera will go without turning completely blurred. So I've got that little area there, and then they're going to need some shadow on their toms. So I'm going to go in with my brown again. Now that yellow that I'm using, once again, is a 985. And my brown 977, and I'm just going to put that and scribble it off onto my little stamp block and put it here, because I know that I don't need much, and I'm not going to clean my brush. I'm going to keep the yellow on it and just pick that up and see what I end up with. So we're just putting a little bit of shadow down there onto our birdie, but not too much because we're still trying to keep it yellow. And then a little bit of shadow here. I think that's all right. Might go a little bit off the edge there. Yeah, that bit might look a little bit too dark for me, so I might push that up there, and then I'm going to get my kitchen paper and just blob it there, so that you've taken it out again if it's too much. And I'm just going to stick with that. So that's the yellow bit of my birdie, and the next bit is the red. Yes, that's when you start getting brave. I usually make horrendous messes with red, whether, you know, it's pencil, pen or marker. It doesn't really matter. I can get carried away with red, and as you know, if you're using markers, it can bleed terribly outside of your lines. You just have to keep pushing it back in with your blender pen. Right, now I've got two reds here. I've got the 885 and 856. Now this one is the palest one, and so I'm going to use this first, and I'm going to scribble this in with water, because you want it to go down more pinkish than red. So we're going to water that up a bit. So you just saw there, I just put a good squidge of water. And then you just have to be brave. Remember, we're going to go back in here with some dark highlights. We can use some brown and black. Now, because this is watered, you can see it's going down pinkish in tinge, and that's a good thing. If you hear me shouting, it's because I'm actually getting closer to the mic so that I'm trying to see exactly what it is that I'm doing. So this is kind of a pink raspberry colour. And if you're using distress inks, I would say worn lipstick for this kind of shade. Right, now I need to let that base colour dry, and I will be right back. Right, I think that's dry enough, and now we're going to use the darker red, which I said is 856. Just making sure that's correct. Yeah, you can see this one on the left is darker than this one on the right, and I'm still keeping my pinky bit there in case I need to use it, but I'm just scribbling down a little bit of that darker red, and we're going to do the wingy bits, I think. And just remember that anything you put down, if you think that it's too much, just get your tissue and blob it before it's dry. And I'm picking out the wingy bits. And personally, for me, I'm going to blob it. So it's a hint of a tint. That's what I've got. And I'm going to use a little bit now because we need to be casting a little bit of shadow, I think, on this little bird, because it's hugging up to its partner. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to find a clean piece of my kitchen paper. I'm just moving it around until, because it's covered in yellow, and I'm just going to dab that too. Right, I'm going to consider that one for that bit done. And then I'm going to go dark red here and be quite brave. Try and use the colour, if you know what I mean, to kind of get the shape of its head in. And I always think that things like this are great sort of like rainy day projects. You know, on a rainy Sunday afternoon or something like that. And I've got my paper, and I'm just going to blob it again. So I'm hint of a tint. Now that is a little bit too dark for me on that edge, so I'm just going into my watery down pink, and I'm going to push that around and blob it again. There, I think that's a little bit softer. So I've got that, and I need to let it dry because the next thing we're going to do is put black into it. Right, so I've had a little tidy up, and now I've got the black one. If you don't know what that is, it's N15. Got that upside down. There you go. And I know that their little feet and the eyes and the beaks are actually done in black. I think there's a bit of highlight on the eyes, I'm not sure. But I've got the embossed areas where I can go into for that. So I'm just going to get the feet done first. And then I'm looking at the faces, and I'm wondering if I can't get away with using my 1.5mm flat backs on the eyes. And you know, wherever you can make something easier for yourself, then you know, by all means do it. So I've gone in and I've done the beak area that is embossed. Now when that bit is dry, I'm going to be able to go in with my white gel pen and highlight it. But for the eyes, I'm going to use, I think the 4mm are too big, so I'm going to use the 1.5mm flat backs. I'm just going to take a few there and turn them over. Put the others back in my pot. When you get these, you'll find that they will last you a very, very long time. So I've got 4 down there. And I need to make sure that my glue bottle is working, so I'm just going to squeeze that off camera. And I'm going to put a little dot of glue where the eyes are embossed as being. Right, so I'll put my glue down where the eyes are, and now I'm going to pick them up. So, you know, rather than struggle to do a little black dot if you can't, it's much easier to do it this way. And then you just need to move your eyes around to make sure that they're correct. That one is not. And what I tend to do is use my old poke tool, hold things down and then shift them over. Because as I'm always saying, where you put the eyes can mean everything to the character of a face. So they will get a little white dot highlight there on their beaks. But just for now, I'm just going to let that dry and I will be back. Right, now the little birdies are still drying a little bit, but I've got some black soot on here and I just want to like edge things up, because if you remember the background, it's very kind of vintagey and a little bit distressed looking. So I just want to make sure that what I've made is going to tie in with the base that I did. Now my little birdies, I want to edge those, but at the same time I don't want to knock the little eyes off. So I'm hoping the little eyes will behave and stay there. And just put a little bit of darkness onto the tail, going up the side of their face there. So I've just edged that with a little bit of ink. Doing the same with this one. And I'm always saying, you know, when you've got something, you can do whatever it is you want to. You know, don't let anybody dictate the way you do anything. Just get lost in what you're doing. That's what I say. Right, now the only thing that's left is these will sit down here, and the only thing that's left to colour in is the bow. Now they are slightly overlapped because they are, whoops, we have gone blurred. Let's hope that sorts itself out. Because they are lovey-dovey birds, I am going to get that back. There, I think that's it. So we've got our lovey-dovey birds and then we've got our bow. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go in with a pale blue, which is 291 and 451, and then the darker blue 493. So my lightest one is 291, and I'm going to scribble that all over the base of my bow. So that was super quick and very easy. My next colour that I want to use is my 451, and what I'm going to do with this is try to kind of like find out where my shadows should be, because then I can use it to add my darker colour. And then I am going to put a little bit of water onto that. Always make sure that you check your brush, because I just did it onto there. Look, see, it's still got red on it. So I'm just going to squeeze it off onto a piece of kitchen paper to make sure that my brush is coming out clean, or cleanish. Usually what happens when my water brush runs out of water, I've got a squirty bottle here. I think this one is from, oh yeah, this one's from Walmart, and it was a couple of bucks when I got it, but it just squirts so nicely. It doesn't go all over the place, it just kind of puts it where you want it. And so I'm actually going to go into this. You've got to remember that when you put water down on watercolour paper, what you're essentially doing is priming it so that you've got more control over where the colour goes. Right, now my next colour is my blue, and I may have to mix this with a bit of water, but my brush is already wet, so I'm just going to go in here. And I'm just thinking, you know, about the design that I saw on the website and what I'm getting up to. And it does not have to be perfect. It really doesn't. I think I'm going to go like that. And then if I've got a clean piece of kitchen paper, because you can see the colour of it now, I'm sure there's a little space there somewhere that may be slightly clean, because I don't want to make green on there. And I'm just going to dab that off. And as soon as that's dry, I'm going to go around the edges of it with my black distress. I'll be back in a minute. Right, so my bow is still a little bit damp, but I've got my white gel pen here, and I'm going to try and do a little highlight on my birdie beaks, and hopefully I can see what I'm doing. Just going to put in just a little bit. That's all it needs. So I don't know if you can see that. It's just very, very slight. Yeah. Almost like their beaks are open, if you know what I mean. But I think that my blue might be dry enough to put a little bit of distressed edge on it. And I know this is one of my longer videos, so I do apologise for that. So I think that's enough darkness upon my bow. In fact, there's a little area there. There. Now I'm happy. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some pads on the backs of those, and we'll put the card together. I'll be back in a second. Right, so what I decided to do was tidy up, obviously, put my card base down, and I'm going to show you where I'm going to put the stuff, and then I'm going to go and glue it. So we've got our door knocker here, and that will have some, excuse my throat, some greenery. It's going to have the bow, and I've got other little bits of greenery that I can stick into there. kind of pretty much like this arrangement. I might go a little bit behind there, and then, ooh, I don't know, maybe come down a little bit so that I've got some coming out of there. So kind of roughly like that. And then we've got our two little sweet birds, and that one's going to hug behind there. So that is our little Christmas door knocker. Now I can tell you what is supposed to go underneath their feet is snow. Now I think what I will do is I'm going to pop some pearl drops down before I go, which is the little birdie pearl drops. Let me test to make sure it's going to come out. Yes, it is. Now I don't want to go too mad with it. I'm just having a little blob there. You've got to remember that this is not going to be dry. But onto there, if I move these up out of the way, I can have a little bit of glitter. Now I've got this Darius glitter which is called Crystal. Yeah. So I'm going to grab a little pinch of that. Just going to get my mat back because I don't want to get it anywhere else. But as I say, the image on the website, it does have, you know, snow on that bit, so it would be highly improper not to have it there, I think. So I've totally covered that. And where you just saw me stick those other things, that's basically where I'm going to go off and stick them. But I'm going to try and squish this flat so it will take the glitter into that glue and hopefully be a bit better for me to put it together. Right, I'll be back in a minute. Right, and so here it is, and I've stuck it down, and I'm hoping that my camera's not going to play up. But there it is, done in watercolour, and you have to excuse my throat. You can, of course, use colour cardstock if you want to, but I just thought it would suit that background that I did on Monday. Plenty of space to put a sentiment, and if you've got poinsettia and other greenery, holly and stuff, you could just go completely wild around that image and really make it stand up. So that is what we made today, and this is what I pre-made. The lovely and simple little mittens there, really quick card. And if you wanted to, you can reverse your gingerbread, punch a hole in the cuff, and you would have a great tag. So once again, thank you so much for joining me. Now I am up again tomorrow with DIY Art Bin, and there's a couple of little cuties there that I like the look of, so I'll try and make one, and we'll make one as well. Okay, thank you so much. Have an absolutely awesome day, and as usual, all links below. Bye.